Hello everyone, and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program. Now on this stormy evening at the Space Center, well, we have some bittersweet news. This episode is, well, as I said, bittersweet. We make a giant leap for Kerbal kind, but we do so merely to save our space agency from bankruptcy. The new development costs of the rocket, which you will see today, ate up all of the money we had. So much so, we could only afford 3 launches. So let's hop into the KSP classic tale of Moon or Bust. And as you can see, our first test of our new vehicle, Pyra 3, has lifted off cleanly. The solid rocket boosters burn for a few seconds before jettisoning. When you may have noticed, since they jettison so early, we do a small pad avoidance maneuver so that they don't fall back down on our launch site. Now this rocket is, when performing well, overpowered for our current needs. It can sling things straight to Duna, even. And I'm certain it will do just that. Now, here's one problem with the vehicle, is, as you may have just noticed, we lost an engine. Our current engines are not reliable. For example, our second stage only having one ignition, the same with the first stage engines. However, this rocket was designed with that in mind. It can run after about, right when the SRBs burn out, it can run with 2 engines and still complete its objectives. And at about 1.5 minutes into flight, it can lose 2 of the 3 engines and still complete the mission. The only thing, though, is the second stage, which, as I said, has 1 ignition, or for missions where it would require multiple in future versions, well, it can't do that. And would you guess what failed on this first test flight? The second stage. Well, its goal was just to put a small probe in orbit. This probe would then fire an SRB and get slung somewhere random in the solar system. Interplanetary science, maybe? I don't know. Just a test flight, basically just a mass simulator. However, we did not get this into orbit. Mission Control, frantically, well, not frantically, they had plenty of time, commanded the solid rocket motor to fire, and sent it into a highly elliptical orbit. No interplanetary science for us. But we do get reliability data on those engines. Regardless, I would categorize this mission as a partial success. New vehicle has my stamp of approval. I swear, it is always storming at the KSC when I try and record these. Regardless, we're in a bit of a pickle. That launch didn't go too great. The second launch is a polar orbit communication satellite, which will make the final flight that we can currently afford, a lunar science return mission, vastly easier considering the only connection we have is the Space Center. The first one was allowed to fail. The second, it can fail, but it'll make the third one harder. And if the third one fails, it's over. It's a true moon or bust. We just cannot afford a fourth vehicle. And even if we could, the odds probably wouldn't be much better. So, well, we have to put our faith in Pyra once again. It carried us to success on Pyra 2, and we hope that Pyra 3 will be better. I even took this contract, which will basically net less than 1,000 funds, to test this engine just to try and improve our odds. This was actually done before the flight you just saw, and it is what paid for the second version of that Terrier engine, with it, which allows two ignitions, which, as you saw, both were utilized. I originally planned to just use the satellite, or the communication satellite for that. However, more data, more better. Now, this third flight is, well, beforehand I was sitting here thinking that this series is doomed, because it's utilizing the very first hydrogen engine our program has ever gotten their hands on, developed, whatever you want to call it. It has 10 ignitions and is super, super efficient. The thing is, we don't have any of the tech to deal with the accompanying boil off, or leakage, or any of the other headaches that come from utilizing hydrogen. Additionally, the engine isn't necessarily too reliable, given it's the first hydrogen engine we've used, so I'm sitting here thinking it's doomed. But there's that chance that it works, and that we complete the contract to explore the moon with a probe, and we make relatively bank. It's not necessarily millions of funds, but for us, it's bank. So, well, I'll just let you watch it unfold. It was interesting. So yeah. from this point on, it was very much just a very, very gentle ascent. But while I was doing it, I was pinching myself. Did that really just work? Did we get through a clean launch of Pyra with a clean TMI and a clean braking burn? Well, two braking burns. And now we're on to the landing burn, and everything is exactly where it should be. Boil off was even less than expected at this point. And I was having some hope that our agency might not be over. I did use more ignitions than I would have liked on landing. I did set a limit for myself because I need minimum 2 to get back. Which means after the 2 I've used for the braking burns, I have 6. Which is a lot. Well, for our purposes. This allowed me to do many, many fine-tuning burns so that we don't land on top of boulders the size of cars. But, as you can see, the descent, well, ascent and now descent went flawlessly. And you can rest assured, our spacecraft touched down gently on the surface of the moon. And, of course, we gather that sweet, sweet scientific data to bring back to the lab. Now, aside from taking in the beauty and running those scientific experiments, there's not actually a lot for us to do here. At this stage in the game, we can't grab ground samples. We can't plant a flag. We can't do much other than snap a couple photos from our lander, grab some mediocre science data, and head back home, which is what we did. I was on the lunar surface for less than 5 minutes because there just wasn't anything for me to do. Also, I noticed KSP was starting to get a little more laggy than usual, meaning I was going to have to restart it soon, and I didn't want to risk the corruption of the mission. Now, I used 5 of the 6 to land, meaning I had 3 ignitions to get home, and I used 2 for ascent, and then the final for the TKI, which all went flawlessly. Now the engine was starting to wear down, and on that TKI, we had a thrust loss, not a performance loss. So, especially being in deep space and literally 80% done with the burn, it did not affect us at all. And we made it home to a fiery re-entry in Kerbin's atmosphere. Dude, did that just happen? I mean, this is the most dire lunar bust in KSP history. Nah, I'm kidding. That was probably goes to N9's original Realism Overhaul series. That was wacky. Anyway, of course we're going to take that science data. We're going to go straight to the R&D, and we are going to unlock many, 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 many things with that trove of science we now have. Of course, we're going to go through the basic nodes, rocketry nodes, fueling nodes. I believe I also picked up some aviation because crew science is valuable. Now, regardless, Those 3 launches are all I have for you in this episode. It was a wild ride, and I was not sure if we were going to make it in the slightest. But now with a massive burst of inspiration, I'm going to make more of this. I mean, that went probably as good as it could have gone. I mean, excluding the performance loss, thrust loss, which didn't even hinder the mission, and even if it had been during landing, it probably wouldn't have, because the thrust to weight ratio still would have been so high. It was a roller coaster of emotions filming this episode, and I hope the next ones will maybe not be as dire, but have just as much emotion. Remember to like, subscribe, and even leave a comment if you liked the video. And as always, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.